Hello and welcome to this edition of Probation Matters. My name is Gail McGreevy and I'm joined today by probation officers Christine and Lauren. On any given day, probation in Northern Ireland are managing over 4,000 people on a range of community sentences and licences. The majority of those are men, who make up 88% of the caseload, with females accounting for 12% of the caseload. A large number of our service users are managed by our Belfast teams. So today we're joined by probation officers from two of those teams. Christine is based in Dunkern Gardens in North Belfast and Lauren is based in our Ormer Road office. Really good to have you both here today, Lauren and Christine, and maybe if you could just kick off with a little bit about yourself and your experience to date of probation.
Hi, my name is Lauren, so I'm based down in the South Belfast team. I've been a social worker now from 2014 and I've been in probation. It'll be 3 years coming up in June. Before that I had been in a looked after children's team then in the trust. So I've had a varied kind of experience within social work. Probation was something that I always wanted to do. I had done an initial degree in sociology and criminology, and probation was what I always wanted to do, and then realised that actually to be a probation officer you have to do social work. So I went back, done my social work, and then had went into a trust team, and at that time probation was extremely difficult to get into. Nobody left, everybody really enjoyed their job, and anybody I knew that was in the service spoke so highly of it. So whenever the opportunity came then that probation were hiring, I had left my job then at that time in the trust and then had started within probation just in the middle of COVID. Really, so 3 years I will be here in June and really enjoying it. Every day is very, very different. Meeting everybody from sort of all walks of life, and yeah, still here and still enjoying it.
Brilliant. And you said you always wanted to be a probation officer. Why did you always want to be a probation officer? What was it about the job that attracted you?
I've always been really interested in the criminal justice system within itself, and working with offenders and working with service users that have come to the attention of the courts, and I suppose just helping people and getting to know people. Social work is a very privileged job where you get to know people extremely well, their good qualities and their bad qualities, and probation is no different in that, and I suppose within probation as well is that you're working one-on-one with that person, and you are sometimes seeing service users depending on, I suppose, assessments extremely regularly, and for some of those people you're maybe the only person that they have to turn to. So it's an extremely personal job where you get to know people very, very well, but also a real privilege as well.
And Christine, you were based in the North Belfast office, so tell us a little bit about North Belfast and your experience to date.
Certainly. So yes, my name's Christine. I'm based in Dunkern Gardens in the generic fieldwork team. So similarly to Lauren, I suppose our experience is quite similar in that I started out on a degree in criminology and sociology, and then went on to do my social work, and probation was the perfect opportunity to sort of combine the criminal and sociology side of things with the social work. I was a student here in West Belfast for my second social work placement through Queen's, and I just loved it. This help and support that was available to me through the learning and development team and practice teaching, it was just such a great placement. And a bit like Lauren had said about whenever the jobs were very sought after, it was the same with the placements. Anyone that didn't get a probation placement was like, oh, you're so lucky to get your placement within probation. So it's such a good experience on my placement, and learned so much that I then came straight back in 2019 as an employed probation officer, and I've been here ever since. So I've had quite a, I suppose, busy work experience so far with probation, being in West Belfast on placement and then North. It is a very diverse and challenging area. There's high levels of poor mental health, high levels of addiction, but it's a very rewarding work in that whenever you see change in people and you see people either successfully complete their licence, successfully complete their order, or even things like, get accommodation, get a job, really turn things around, it's really rewarding and worth all the sort of hard work and effort and all the challenges that come with it.
Yeah, North Belfast is a bit of a microcosm. You're sitting there in Dunkern, just off the peace line, and there's lots of issues, as you've said. Mental health is a big issue, and high rates of self-harm and suicide, and that brings its own elements around how you deal with people who are really traumatised, and you must see that a lot coming through the doors. There must be a lot of people who are really suffering from poor mental health, and how is that in terms of dealing with it? How do you reflect that in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having a trauma-informed lens to what we're doing is so important. And what I see a lot of is that intergenerational trauma, in that you might have somebody sitting in front of you, a young, usually male is mostly what I work with, but maybe their parent or their grandparent have also been involved with us or been involved in the criminal justice system. And then obviously just the legacy of the Troubles and that sort of trauma that comes within North Belfast in the area that I work in. So I suppose it's about making appropriate referrals and making sure that you're managing the risk whilst also supporting that person and understanding of why they have came to commit this offence and what's led them, their life experiences and what's led them to where they are now, and really taking them from where they are now and trying to build on that and work through that with them, supported by the likes of our voluntary service, the voluntary agencies, along with the likes of probation psychology. In terms of how I cope with that as well, it's about reflection and supervision with your manager, so you're not, because you're hearing things about people, things that have happened to people throughout their lives that you don't want to, that it can be quite hard to hear, and it's about leaning on your colleagues and your manager for supervision and how to sort of cope with that yourself as well, and how you talk about those issues.
Yeah, there's that vicarious trauma that you're dealing with as well, and having to get that support, and I suppose support other colleagues through wellbeing and other initiatives as well. So yeah, that's really important. Lauren, just in terms of the job, and you've talked and touched a bit of this already, but what are the highs and the lows for you as a probation officer every day? What motivates you? What gets you up and into the office? And in contrast to that, what are the difficult things you deal with?
I suppose, as Christine had said as well, like the highs can be something as simple as somebody going to an appointment, an addiction appointment, an appointment with their GP, something that they have been putting off maybe for a long time, that has actually taken a lot of encouragement, for them to be able to go to, and also then somebody like, finishing their licence, somebody maybe who's actually for the first time ever actually stayed out on their licence or been able to finish their probation order, successfully, as well, and actually maybe service users coming back to us and saying, do you know what, probation's actually been really helpful for me, and actually giving examples as to reasons as to why, that probation have maybe helped me, in terms of getting that GP appointment or getting some accommodation, or, even if they maybe come to the attention of the courts again, probation then, linking in with the courts, completing addendum reports and saying what the service user's actually done as well, kind of giving some context around that. And I find that a lot of the service users would come back to us and say, that's actually really, really helped me. So I do find, for me personally, I get like a lot of, a lot out of that. And also then as a practitioner as well, actually seeing how people do develop. I think the difficulties can be, again, as Christine said, we're maybe working with some of the most marginalised people within society. And, we are quite a unique situation in this part of the world, but, people who have maybe experienced the Troubles, and there's that intergenerational trauma, and people are working through those challenges, and sometimes maybe the results aren't what we want. Ultimately we are risk managing, but as well, sometimes orders don't go successfully. Sometimes people do have to get recalled back, to prison as well. And sometimes that can be really hard as a practitioner, because you get to know that person on a one-to-one basis and see some of the things that they're doing. But ultimately, we are responsible for the protection of the public, and we have to, act accordingly, along with that as well. So I would say that would be quite difficult for me, on a personal level too. But also, I think a lot of teams probably within the Belfast area specifically have maybe lost service users as well, through mental health and addiction, and that has been extremely difficult. I think, as Christina said, we have the great support of your area managers and your colleagues, which is amazing, but that can be extremely challenging, on an emotional level as well. So I suppose just developing your own resilience in that, again, is something that kind of has to keep going. But what kind of gets you out of bed in the morning to come to probation is you do not know what you're coming into, which sometimes is a good thing and a bad thing, but you don't know what you're going to get one day to the next. So probation is exciting, it's different. I do think when you are in this sort of job, you know, you are constantly running on maybe that little bit of adrenaline, and you are working under that pressure and that stress, but you thrive upon that as well. So yeah, very different one day to the next.
Perfect. And the same question to you, Christine. Lots of challenges in North Belfast, but lots of, I'm sure, good days where you see the fruition of your work, and you see that bit around changing lives and facilitating the change process. So yeah, again to you, just the highs and lows of the job. What are they for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's seeing that person either complete their order or licence, or even make small changes to their lives that they didn't think that they'd be able to change, and show an insight into actually, no, this is what I need to do. And even just like the small thank you get, oh, thanks for that, you know, it actually means a lot more than what people would think. And as well, I think for me that one of the highs is knowing that whilst I'm supporting that person, I'm managing risk at the same time in terms of protecting the public and ultimately trying to ensure that there's less victims of crime. So we're doing that together, as long as we're supporting that person, because in supporting that person, we're helping to reduce their likelihood of reoffending. So that's sort of what motivates me as well. You're sort of doing two things at once. In terms of the lows, again, it's just, as Lauren was saying, that emotional challenge of the people that we're working with, and also, I suppose, just some, frustrations in terms of services. And, we all mentioned COVID, and it's sort of one thing that's always mentioned, but it has resulted in long waiting lists, and, the current cost of living crisis, and you want to help your service users, and sometimes just the systems that they're involved in are difficult to support them in, in terms of you want somebody to make changes, but they're struggling for money and they're reliant on food banks to get themselves and their families through. So and the services we have here in Northern Ireland are amazing, but sometimes that can be frustrating, and you're sort of wanting things to change on the outside as well as the person as well, so that can just be a bit of a challenge. But overall, it's an extremely rewarding job, and it's something that I've get a good reward out of doing.
And do you think the public, and this is a question to both of you, do you think the public understand the job that you do? Probation, I suppose, tends to be maybe not portrayed as much on TV and dramas. You don't maybe see it very much. So do the public get it for you? Do you think they understand the jobs? Or is there a message that you would want to give the public about the role of probation and what you're doing in communities?
I suppose what I would say is no. Like, if I speak to any of my family and friends, nobody really seems to have an idea in terms of what probation do, or if they do have a bit of an idea about probation, it's not actually what we do, if that makes sense. As well. But I suppose the biggest thing, probably the biggest misconception even a lot of the service users would have, is that we are social work trained. We're social work practitioners, we've been through our own academic routes to get to where we are, and a lot of the service users that would come in, I would tell them, like, I am a social worker by trade, and a lot of them didn't realise that. I think a lot of them think that we come through different routes of the criminal justice system and maybe have their own misconceptions around that. But I think, in terms of probation, I think it is one of those services that works very much unseen and unheard, and I suppose it's kind of those like hidden heroes nearly in a way. The job gets done, day in, day out, and the public maybe nearly take that for granted a wee bit too, in terms of how well we do our job. And I suppose it is a testament to nearly all of the workers that we have within probation that we don't do it for the thanks, really, and that is, I suppose, the thing with social work as well. You just kind of get up and get on with it. So absolutely, I think social work and probation in general is very much underground. You don't hear the same stats, you don't hear the same cases or things getting highlighted, and maybe even the good pieces of work, is maybe what some of the other health professionals would get too. So I think maybe that's something we can maybe get better at, just in general, in terms of just actually saying this is what we do, and actually we're good at it.
And I think there's a bit of a perception as well, just that if people are in prison, that sort of idea of lock them up and throw away the key type thing. But actually, you know, people being able to sustain and make changes in the community is so important, and us being able to successfully reintegrate people back into their communities is such a big part of them reducing their likelihood of committing further offences. So I think just that aspect is so important for the public to be aware of, and then what we actually do in terms of risk management plans and also supporting that person to make changes.
And what would you say to anybody thinking about a career in probation? You know, there's people out there working at the minute, students who are going through social work. Would you encourage people to think of probation as a career?
Absolutely, and as I said at the start, the support I received as a student was really second to none. It really was so important for my career in terms of, you know, you're not overloaded at the start. You're talked through everything. The training facility is really, really good, and the learning and development opportunities. At the minute, I'm doing a numerous training courses through probation, including my professional and practice award and my post-qualifying awards that we have to do through the Social Care Council. Probation are really helpful with all of that, and the management and guidance that you do get through with your caseload is really useful. It's something I would definitely encourage everyone, if they're considering a social work career, to consider probation.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose I've had the experience of working for different agencies before probation, and I think probation is very good in terms of, I suppose, supporting your own development as a practitioner. And also then as well, you know, there's staff days coming up, the trauma-informed practice, you know, and I think probation is really pushing that forward, you know, in terms of meeting together as a group. And actually it's quite nice in a way, because probation is obviously a smaller agency, and you get to know, you know, different people and different teams quite quickly and really well, but it's still a big enough agency as well, and still very diverse, and you know, you could move to all different teams, and which I really like as well. You know, you have the opportunity that if you wanted to potentially say move to a prison or an ISU team or a women's team, wherever it may be, you have that opportunity, you know, to be able to do that. Whereas I know in other social work roles, once you're in that role, say family and childcare, that's where you're essentially going to stay. So I think probation is good that it does offer you that flexibility, that you could go to different teams if that was something that you wanted to do. And absolutely, I think anybody coming out of university, I think absolutely should take probation seriously in terms of a potential route and position that you would like to take, you know, further on, because I think, you know, there is great scope there for development. And as Christine has said about, you know, the different routes that you can take in terms of promoting your own training and things that you would like to do. And I know even as I have started as well, you know, the amount of training that I've been able to avail of, the really robust induction process as well, which really helped me to settle in initially in probation, who was second to none. You know, I have never had induction like that, and everybody was just so welcoming and just so really nice, a really nice place to work, and it's really enjoyable work, and yeah, it would be something absolutely I would totally recommend.
Thanks so much to both of you for explaining our role in reducing reoffending and changing lives for safer communities. To find out more about probation, you can visit our website at pbni.org.uk or find us on any of our social media channels across Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Thanks so much.